Well, get ready for annual COVID shots thanks to the FDA and the CDC. On January 26th last week, the FDA Advisory Committee held a meeting. Mainstream media largely ignored the story, and the vote was on annual vaccines. And not surprisingly, they voted to let you skip the original vaccine and go straight to getting those COVID booster shots once a year. So what does it actually mean to skip that initial shot? I think this message is quite muddy. Well, children and older Americans would be able to get more than one booster per year. You can double up if you want. Dr. Jennifer Smith is a virologist. She has 3 degrees in microbiology with a PhD in microbiology and molecular cell sciences. She spent her career studying respiratory viruses, particularly the flu. And Dr. Smith joins me now. Doctor, great to meet you. Welcome to Redacted.
Hi, thanks for having me today and giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts on the VRBPAC meeting.
Yeah, so this meeting was interesting, right? It kind of went by quietly. It's not all wrapped up yet, but unanimously they came out and said, hey, we're all on the same page here. So the FDA advisory group that had this meeting, they're supposed to have our interests at heart, right? They're supposed to care about us. So at a high level, a 30,000 foot level, do they have any conflicts of interest at all before they started this meeting? Is Big Pharma pulling their strings in any kind of way, or are they totally impartial and they just have our health in their minds?
Well, as you know, it's supposed to be an independent committee. However, a majority of the members, they're either clinicians or they have ties to pharma. So a lot of them are connected with other agencies as well, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which we know the conflict there. So yeah, these are people who don't really have the expertise to talk about this type of subject.
So they don't have the expertise to talk about the subject. They're being influenced by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with funding and big pharmaceutical companies. So they come out with this decision to move basically away from a monovalent shot, the original shots that we were all told to get, and then also go and get boosters. So now we're getting rid of the original shots, just moving right to the boosters. Is that right?
Correct. That's what they're advocating for. So what's been really interesting to me is that they have still been recommending these injections at all, given that the original Wuhan strain has been extinct for quite some time. So it doesn't really make sense, even with the supposed bivalent shots that they recommended, because as I said, this virus has been extinct for a very long time. You also have to remember that a majority of the world has now been exposed to the virus and has some type of immunity, either from infection, recovering from infection, or from these injections. So I'm not really certain why the continued need for any kind of shots for COVID.
Can I give you a need? Can I give you my thought on what the need is? It's just money, is it not? I mean, sure. Right. I mean, hate to be cynical, but that's what it comes down to. If Big Pharma is influencing this, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation involved in this, and we don't even have them approved yet, right? These are still emergency use authorized vaccines. So now this is going to be a yearly thing and we don't even have full approval yet?
Right. So that's actually the most disturbing point for me is these are still only under EUA, emergency use authorization. What that means is there has to be an emergency declaration in order to deploy these injections. I won't even call it a vaccine because it just simply is not meet the definition of a vaccination. So if there is no emergency, which the president of the United States has already said last fall that the pandemic is over, there is no emergency for annual injections.
So if there's no emergency and they don't have, and these things are not approved yet, then why are they still in this status? Why have they not been moved up to approval status yet? As a virologist, and you look at these different medications and vaccines or not vaccines, this seems to me the next logical step here. But it seems like they're going to be stuck in this black hole in perpetuity, no?
Well, that's a very good question. Why, if these injections are so great, why are they not getting fully FDA licensed?
Right.
That's something that people really need to think about.
What does it mean to be fully vaccinated anymore?
That's another great question. And I really see, first it was getting the first 2 shots, the first 2 injections, and then getting the 3rd injection. And now there's like a bivalent injection. So I see the definition of fully vaccinated being changed yet again as they move to this supposed like annual injection schedule.
Well, doctor, they did test these on 8 mice. So we do have, I mean, are you concerned of these trials? Like, we really don't have any trial data on this at all. 8 mice. I'm not being facetious here. That was the bivalent testing results of 8 mice.
Correct. Well, that shows you how this agency is just being bought, because mice, first of all, are not the correct model to be used to study these injections, because they don't have the same receptors as humans. So mice are the completely wrong model to be used to study these injections. And not having the full data, we all know that we're in a global clinical trial for mRNA therapeutics. So they're using humans really as the guinea pigs in all of this. And there was a committee member, I remember saying that when giving this to children, that they're just going to have to give it to them to find out what happens. So they're literally using children as the guinea pigs.
It's awful.
It's very disturbing. It's very disturbing. We normally have years of data past FDA approval before even recommending some of these drugs and treatments for pregnant women, for children. So now instead, they're not even going to be doing clinical trials anymore. They're just going to be changing the mRNA injections without providing any clinical trial or any data. And it's just going to be rolled out to the human population.
When did you, or did you, as a virologist, you've been knee deep in this for years. You have close ties, I imagine, with people who work in infectious diseases and so forth. Was there a point at which you lost your faith in the CDC, the FDA? Was there a moment maybe during the pandemic when that happened? Or do you still have faith in these organizations?
I'll be honest with you. My dream job was always to work at the CDC. That was my goal all through high school, through college. I just thought that was the world premier public health institution. And I went to graduate school in Georgia because I wanted to be close to the CDC so I could get a job there when I graduated. I mean, I really worked hard for years to connect with people at CDC. I had collaborations at CDC. And now I don't want to be anywhere near that institution at all. I mean, I think it's really sad. There are definitely people who are very intelligent, who are very good at their job, I had colleagues who were very upset even when they rolled out the PCR testing from CDC because of the lack of quality control. And there were people who actually left CDC over that. So, I think that they've been compromised. I think that their integrity has definitely been damaged, and just the lack of actual public health coming out of the CDC is really disheartening. It's very disheartening to see.
That's really disturbing. I feel the same way in journalism. I had dreams and desires to work for certain big, mainstream media organizations when I was younger. And I thought that's the be all end all of it. Then you realize how compromised they are and how bought and paid for they are, and how it's really disturbing and it's disheartening. Some of, your innocence gets lost in a bit of way. Speaking of innocence, right now we're seeing a lot of children. I mean, we just got notes today from our children's school about strep in the school, and my two of my children are home from school today, coughing and everything, and it's just been, everyone I've been talking to has been sick. What are you seeing right now when we talk about, this is just the flu? When we hear about COVID is the flu, or as a specialist who has studied the flu for many, many years, what do you make of that? What do you think when right now we're seeing a lot of this outbreak? Is it COVID related, totally separate, or are they now joined together?
Are you talking about COVID and flu?
Yeah, COVID and flu. I mean, because I've heard, in fact, from clinic specialists saying, well, what you might have is COVID, but you also might have this, and now it's just sort of lumped in as part of a regular winter time. Everyone's got the sniffles.
Right. So it's really difficult to tease out. We know that flu is seasonal in most areas. Now in tropical regions, it's year round, like in Hawaii where I was, that's year round influenza season. the problem is with this new disease, SARS-CoV-2 has now become endemic. So usually all respiratory viruses are seasonal. So they come and they go. We have peaks of when they're being transmitted, but it's really too early in the endemic phase with SARS-CoV-2 to determine the seasonality. We've seen cases peak in the summertime. We've seen cases peak in the wintertime. So it's really difficult to tell right now what the seasonality is going to be with SARS.
We're still at the beginning of this, but unbelievable. We'll stay on top of this. Dr. Jen Smith, we appreciate you joining us on this. And we'll kind of watch how this voting goes. This is not final yet, right? They have a June vote on this to make this official yet? Or where are we at on the FDA voting on these annual boosters?
Right. So this is the committee, the VRBPAC committee makes recommendations to CDC and FDA. So the CDC ACIP committee has to meet and make the determination as well. But they usually follow right along lockstep with the VRBPAC decision. So we'll look to see that FDA and CDC will both go ahead and approve this annual injections for COVID.
Unbelievable. Doc, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate your insights on this, and we'd love to have you back on real soon.
Sure. No problem. Thank you so much, and hope you have a good day.
Thanks so much. And we'll have a link to Dr. Jennifer Smith's Substack in our description as well if you want to read her writings on all of this. She is one smart person. Thank you so much, Doc. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Doc. Really appreciate it. And so we're going to have, I'd like to have the good doctor back on because she's written a book on just the craziness that she had to deal with in the state of Hawaii. Like, you think you know about draconian lockdowns? I mean, wait till you hear what she went through in the state of Hawaii, and just the ridiculous.
Yeah, I read a bit about that, and I was just like, what?
Yeah. I mean, they literally set up, you can call them concentration camps. You can call them whatever you want. They're like quarantine camps. And you weren't even allowed to get if you got a vaccine to fly, like if you had a vaccine in California or in Montana and then you flew, they wouldn't even let you fly into Hawaii. You had to get the vaccine in Hawaii. Like, they would make you get it there. You couldn't just get it in any old state. You had to get it in their own state. And family members couldn't even travel. Like, family members couldn't even travel to see other family on other islands in Hawaii. Like, many islanders have family that live on other islands. You couldn't even travel to see them. But tourists could fly in. But family members, you couldn't go to see. It's crazy.
Just out of curiosity, what mainstream media rag did you see that story on that you're referring to?
Yeah, I didn't see it anyway. You have to read her book to learn this information because
I think last I looked on a map, I believe Hawaii is part of the U.S., which means the U.S. media should technically cover Hawaii, what goes on there, right?
Yeah, you'd think. Yeah, there's a lot of islands that America owns through colonialization and through empire building that we've taken control over. It's part of the United States, but not that coverage. You don't see it anywhere. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.